The envelope slipped from my fingers as the words from the family attorney registered. The board position will go to your sister. She has the right temperament for it. The family business I'd restructured from near bankruptcy to industry leader over 7 grueling years suddenly felt miles away, though I was sitting in its headquarters. My vision narrowed to the succession plan spreadsheet on my screen, the one where I'd logged 3,000 hours of specialized training my sister never bothered to complete, the one my father had called the roadmap to our future last Christmas. I tasted metal as I realized they'd already changed the company letterhead. My name was gone. My name is Patricia, I'm 31 and a business strategist. This is the story of how I reclaimed my family's legacy from those who tried to erase me. For 7 years, I'd worked alongside my father building Reynolds Architectural Solutions into something remarkable, while my younger sister Olivia spent her time between exotic vacations and half-finished art degrees. I was learning every aspect of the business. When Dad had his first heart attack 3 years ago, it was me who stepped in, negotiated the Westfield contract that saved us from bankruptcy, and personally managed the transition to digital systems. "You're just like me," Dad would say, his hand on my shoulder as we reviewed quarterly reports. "This company will be your legacy someday." I believed him. That was my first mistake. The family attorney, Leonard, cleared his throat uncomfortably. "Your father finalized these changes to the succession plan last week. Olivia will assume the CEO position effective immediately." "That's impossible," I said, my voice unnaturally steady. "Dad and I discussed this extensively. I'm the one who's been running operations since his health declined." Leonard wouldn't meet my eyes. Vernon was persuaded that Olivia would present a better image for clients. Something about bringing fresh perspective. Fresh perspective? I laughed, the sound strange even to my own ears. She doesn't know the difference between accounts receivable and accounts payable. That's when my sister walked in, immaculate in a designer suit I recognized from the company card statements I'd approved last month. Behind her stood our father, looking smaller than I remembered, leaning heavily on his cane. "Patty," Olivia sing-songed, using the childhood nickname she knew I hated. "Don't make this awkward. You'll still have a position here. Think of it as less pressure. You can focus on what you're good at, the boring details." Dad wouldn't look at me. "It's decided, Patricia." The board voted unanimously. The board. My uncles and cousins, the same ones who'd nearly run the company into the ground before Dad and I saved it, the same ones who'd called my cost-cutting measures unfeminine and my management style aggressive. I stood up slowly, gathering the succession plan I'd crafted, the one that now had my sister's name where mine should be. "You'll regret this," I said quietly. Not a threat, a prediction. Dad finally looked at me then, irritation flashing across his face. "Don't be dramatic. This is what's best for the family. For the family, not for the company, not for the employees whose livelihoods I'd protected, not for me." I walked out of that office without another word, but I didn't go home to cry. I walked straight to my private office on the 3rd floor of our building, where I kept my most important work files, and I began planning. Because while they were busy celebrating Olivia's coronation, they'd forgotten one critical detail. I was the only one who truly understood how Reynolds Architectural Solutions operated. Every contract, every client relationship, every password and system access. 7 years of knowledge they assumed would transfer with a signature. That night, as I sorted through files, my phone buzzed with text messages from the family group chat. Photos of champagne glasses, Olivia beaming in Dad's old office chair, my mother's message. "So proud of our CEO daughter," as if I didn't exist. I didn't respond. Instead, I pulled up the contact information for James Westfield, our biggest client and the reason we'd survived it all. James, whose daughter had cancer 3 years ago when I personally oversaw the redesign of their corporate headquarters. James, who told me, "Your father is lucky to have you." I called his private cell number, the one he'd given me after I spent nights at the hospital with his family during their crisis. The next morning, I arrived at the office before anyone else. Security let me in without question. They still thought I was in charge. I downloaded backup copies of every project I'd personally managed, then systematically changed my admin passwords and access protocols, not to block them out. That would be too obvious, but to ensure they'd need me to get in. When Olivia arrived at 10:30, I was waiting in her new office. "What are you doing here?" she asked, setting down her latte. "I thought you'd take a few days off to adjust." "Just finalizing some transitions," I said pleasantly. "Congratulations, by the way." "I'm sure Dad made the right choice." She smiled, relieved I wasn't making a scene. "Thanks, Patty. I know this is hard, but you'll see. I have big plans." "I'm sure you do," I replied. "Just one thing you should know. The Westfield contract renewal is due next week. It represents 40% of our annual revenue." "Oh, Leonard mentioned that. I'm meeting with them Thursday." "Perfect," I said, standing to leave. "I'm sure it will go great." What I didn't tell her was that I'd already called James Westfield that morning, that I'd explained I was starting my own consulting firm, that he'd immediately offered to be my first client. "One more thing," I added at the door. "The digital system passwords reset every 30 days for security. Today's the 30th day." Her smile faltered. "I'll have IT handle it." I nodded. "Good luck with that. I designed the security protocols myself." For the next 2 weeks, from my temporary home office where I'd set up operations using my personal savings and a small business loan I'd quickly secured, I watched the chaos unfold at Reynolds Architectural Solutions. First came the frantic emails about access issues, then calls about missing files, then desperate voicemails from Leonard about the Westfield meeting. "They're asking for specific details about their projects that aren't in the files," he said, panic evident in his voice. "Your sister is drowning in there." I didn't return the calls. Instead, I finalized the lease on my new office space in the downtown business district and incorporated Reynolds Patricia Consulting, a name chosen very deliberately. The real crisis hit 3 weeks after my departure. Dad called, his voice gruff with forced casualness. "Patricia, we need to discuss your return. There's been some confusion with the transition." "Confusion," I repeated, "or consequences?" A heavy sigh. "The Westfield contract. Olivia met with them last week." And they're not renewing. James said something about wanting to continue working with you specifically. Said you understand their vision." I allowed myself a small smile. "That's unfortunate." "This isn't funny, Patricia. That contract is nearly half our business." "I'm aware. I negotiated it, remember?" Silence stretched between us. Finally, he spoke again, his voice softer. "What do you want?" "What makes you think I want anything?" "Because you're my daughter. You don't just walk away, you leverage. What's your ask?" For a moment, I felt a flicker of pride at his recognition. Then I remembered the betrayal. "I don't want anything from Reynolds Architectural Solutions," I said calmly. "I've started my own firm. Westfield is my client now, along with Brenner Corp and the Yoshida Group." I could almost hear him calculating the percentages. Those 3 clients represented over 60% of the company's revenue. "You can't do this," he said, anger replacing shock. "Those are family company clients." "Were," I corrected. "They've signed with me now." Turns out clients prefer working with the person who actually managed their projects rather than someone who doesn't know their names. "This is theft." "This is business," I replied. "You chose Olivia for her public image. I'm sure that will comfort you when you're explaining to the board why revenue is down 63% next quarter." I hung up before he could respond. Within an hour, my uncles were calling, then my cousins, each message more desperate than the last. I let them all go to voicemail. 6 weeks after my demotion, I received a formal letter from the family attorney. Reynolds Architectural Solutions was offering me the position of co-CEO alongside Olivia. "In recognition of your valuable contributions," the letter stated. I laughed out loud and shredded it. 3 days later, as I was reviewing client files in my newly leased downtown office space, my father showed up unannounced. He looked older, the strain of recent weeks evident in the new lines on his face. "This has gone far enough," he said, not bothering with pleasantries. "You've made your point." I gestured to the chair across from my desk. "I haven't begun to make my point. The company is struggling. Your sister is in over her head. The board is in panic mode." "Not my problem." He leaned forward. "It's your family." "Is it?" Because when you gave my position, my birthright, to Olivia, it felt very much like I wasn't family at all. "That's not fair." "None of this is fair," I said, my composure finally cracking. "I gave 7 years of my life to that company. I worked 80-hour weeks while Olivia was posting Instagram photos from Bali. I saved us from bankruptcy while she was charging designer clothes to the company account. And when it came time to choose a successor, you chose her because she presents a better image?" Dad had the decency to look ashamed. The board felt... "I don't care what the board felt. You're the majority shareholder. It was your decision." He sighed heavily. "What will it take to bring you and our clients back?" I slid a document across the desk. "These are my terms." He scanned the paper, his eyebrows rising. 60% ownership, CEO title, board restructuring. "This is non-negotiable," I finished for him. "You wanted to keep the company in the family." "I am family. This is my price." "And Olivia?" "She can keep her title for public appearances if that matters to you, but she'll report to me, and her signing authority will be limited." Dad looked at me for a long moment. I saw calculation in his eyes, then a glimmer of something else. Pride, perhaps, or recognition. "You're more like me than I realized," he said finally. "No," I corrected him. "I'm better than you. Because I would never betray my family for appearances." He nodded slowly, then reached for the pen on my desk. "The board won't like this. The board doesn't have a choice. Without those clients, the company will collapse within 6 months. They know it. You know it." As he signed the document, I felt no triumph, no vindication, only the cold certainty that while I was reclaiming my rightful place, something between us had broken forever. 3 days later, I walked back through the familiar glass doors of Reynolds Architectural Solutions headquarters, this time as majority owner and CEO. The staff greeted me with barely concealed relief. Even the receptionist whispered, "Thank God you're back," as I passed. Olivia was waiting in what would now be my office, her eyes red. "Happy now?" she asked bitterly. "You've humiliated me." "That wasn't my intention," I said honestly, "but actions have consequences. Dad made a decision that threatened the company's survival. I corrected it." "By forcing your way back in and demoting me to figurehead?" "By saving the company you clearly can't run. Be grateful I left you any position at all." She stood abruptly. "This isn't over." "You're right," I agreed. "It's just beginning. Your first executive report is due on my desk Monday morning. I suggest you start learning what those financial terms mean." The board meeting that afternoon was tense, but brief. I laid out the new structure, the return of key clients, and my plans for the company's future. My uncles and cousins sat in stony silence as I systematically outlined their reduced roles and influence. I implemented the board restructuring I demanded, removing 2 of my uncles entirely and adding 3 independent directors with actual industry experience. "Any questions?" I asked when I finished. Uncle Robert cleared his throat. "This is unprecedented. The Reynolds Company has always been led by consensus." "That consensus nearly destroyed us once," I replied coolly. "It won't happen again. If anyone disagrees with the new direction, you're welcome to sell your shares. I'll buy them at market value." No one spoke, no one resigned. As the meeting adjourned, Dad lingered behind. For a moment, we stood in silence, the weight of all that had happened between us filling the room. "I underestimated you," he said finally. "I thought you needed protection from the harsher aspects of business." "I didn't need protection," I replied. "I needed respect." He nodded slowly. For what it's worth, I'm proud of you. You fought for what's yours. I just wish it hadn't come to this. I gathered my papers, not quite ready to forgive. Next time you consider which of your children deserves your legacy, remember which one was willing to burn it all down rather than be erased. 6 months later, at the grand ballroom of the West Side Hotel where we held our annual holiday gathering, Reynolds Architectural Solutions posted its highest quarterly profit in company history. Olivia had surprised everyone by actually applying herself to learning the business under my strict guidance. Dad had stepped back into an advisory role, his health improving once the stress of daily operations was removed. We had reached a professional, if still somewhat strained, family relationship that prioritized business success over our personal conflicts. At the company holiday party, I stood at the podium addressing our employees and their families. The room was decorated with architectural models of our most successful projects, most of which I had personally overseen. A company isn't just buildings and blueprints, I told them. It's people and principles. It's standing your ground when others try to move you. It's knowing your worth when others try to discount it. My gaze found my father in the crowd, then Olivia, both watching me with complicated expressions. Reynolds Architectural Solutions isn't just a family company, I continued. It's a company built on recognizing and rewarding excellence, no matter who delivers it. That's the legacy I intend to build. The applause was thunderous. As I stepped away from the microphone, Olivia approached me, 2 champagne glasses in hand. Truce? She offered, extending one to me. I accepted the glass but raised an eyebrow. Depends. Have you finished reviewing the Matsumoto proposal? She rolled her eyes but smiled. Yes, boss. All 47 pages. Then we have a temporary truce, I conceded, renewable based on performance. Dad joined us, his expression softening as he looked between his daughters. To family, he proposed as a toast. I raised my glass but fixed him with a steady gaze. To earned respect. He held my eyes for a long moment, then nodded in understanding. To earned respect, he echoed, and we all drank. I had lost my place once by trusting in birthright. I wouldn't make that mistake again. In business and in family, respect isn't given. It's earned, and sometimes reclaimed, one client, one contract, one confrontation at a time. While our relationships would never fully return to what they were before, we'd found a new equilibrium based on mutual respect rather than blind loyalty. Before you go, here's a quick bonus for sticking around. If you love learning and growing like I do, you need to try audiobooks. I've got an exclusive deal with Audible. Your first month is completely free. That's access to over 500,000 titles, zero cost to you. All the details are waiting in the description. Don't miss this one.